I
Yeah,
just muted him.
I'm good. And then everyone will be muted here at 12:30 on the dot. So always have to give that disclaimer.
Okay.
Of course, if you really want to see what a cool microphone looks like, look at Mark Wright with the headphones. I mean, check that out.
Oh yeah.
That guy looks like a retired broadcaster.
This is my office. Yeah.
I know, man. You look
My
marvelous.
commute is 20 seconds now from downstairs up here. It's amazing.
I remember the first time I did that. That felt awesome.
I get collegiate bowler from his look too. Maybe
Yeah,
drummer.
yeah, he does. Yeah, he's got the drummer thing. He's got it all going.
Oh, geez.
That's a midlife crisis. I want another one.
Mark, you can entertain us for a while.
Mhm.
I would say John should entertain us. He's the professional actor. That would be
I'm
fun.
just the comedian, but yeah. I told you all I tried stand-up comedy for a while, but I hated it because nothing like standing in front of a group of people with their arms folded. Okay, make me laugh. Try it. Oh God, it was awful. Gave that up quick. It's
All right,
more.
we're going on mute.
Oh, gotta go.
Welcome to Seattle Rotary, the fourth oldest Rotary Club in the world, where we are able to collaborate with more than 1.4 million Rotarians to make a difference worldwide with our service to others. Our club here in Seattle has been in existence for 115 years. My name's Nancy Cahill, and I'm the current president of Seattle Rotary. We'll start our meeting today with an inspiration brought to us by Rabbi Daniel Weiner. Thank you, Rabbi Weiner.
Thank you so much. Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu, source of life and blessing. As we discuss today our struggle to meet the needs of our community, balancing safety and security with empathy and humaneness, let us remember that in Jewish tradition, the Creator possesses two attributes, justice and compassion. And even more importantly, the world too was created with a balance between the qualities of justice and mercy. For too much justice renders the world a harsh and harrowing landscape of punishment without consideration of context. And too much mercy empowers evil to triumph, leaving the good to languish. And so, let us struggle this afternoon with conscience as much as with consequence, with the comforts of the many as much as our care for the few, with the sacred and central need to strike a balance in all that we do, so as to bring about the ultimate fulfillment of that vision that forged our beginnings, a dream that can only be realized through the will of our hearts and the work of our hands. Amen.
Oh, thank you so much, Rabbi Weiner, for your powerful inspiration. I'd also like to thank today's meeting reporter, Dan Mead-Smith, for tracking our meeting for our future benefit. Our Zoom host today is Karma McKay, and she's going to introduce today's guests. Karma?
Thanks, Nancy. And in case I don't say your name, because I missed you coming into the room, please type your name into the chat box so we can also greet you. The people that I know of from Seattle, we have Marina Udodick. Did I get it right, Marina? Tim Robinson. And then from King County, we have Douglas Wagner, Casey McNerthney, Carla Lee, and from Seattle University Athletics and who is with the Athletics and is a political consultant is Bill Hogan. And we have Russ Amick, who is a member of the University District Rotary, and past District Governor John Gardner. And again, if I've missed anyone, please type your name in. Back to you, Nancy.
Thank you, Karma. We're pleased to have Dorothy Bullitt here to introduce the panelists for our program today. And we've allotted plenty of time after our panel for questions and answers. So please be sure to use the chat feature to input any questions you have for our panelists. And our Sergeant at Arms, Jen Gladish, will handle the questions for the panelists so that they don't have to try to be scanning those chat boxes in the midst of their presentation. Thank you, Dorothy.
Thank you, Nancy. Ann Davison is Seattle's first female city attorney. Her career in public service began more than 30 years ago when she worked as a caseworker in the U.S. House of Representatives, which seems like an intriguing job, especially at the moment. Since being elected city attorney, Ms. Davison has focused on returning real-time accountability to Seattle's criminal justice system through a series of policies, including the High Utilizer Initiative, close-in-time filing, and internal process improvements in the criminal division. She is committed to working together with all members of the city's criminal justice community to reduce crime in Seattle and enforce our laws and our values. Prior to becoming city attorney, Ann worked in private practice. Since 2005, she has focused on a wide variety of areas, including civil litigation, immigration, sports, contracts, business transactions, employment, and intellectual property. Ms. Davison received her BA from Baylor University and her JD from Willamette University. Leesa Manion is the first woman and the first person of color to be elected to serve as King County prosecuting attorney. I believe she's the first Korean American to be a prosecutor in the nation. Prior to her election in 2022, Leesa served for 15 years as King County prosecutor Dan Satterberg's chief of staff. During the course of her career as a prosecutor, Leesa has implemented effective programs that have enhanced victim services, improved public safety, and reduced racial disproportionality. Leesa helped launch the Prosecutors Regional Domestic Violence Firearm Enforcement Unit, which leads the nation in its multidisciplinary approach to tracking and enforcing extreme risk protection orders, as well as the removal, storage, and return of surrendered firearms in King County. As chief of staff and later as King County prosecutor, Leesa helped me and other targets of a convicted contract killer who was scheduled for release last May. With her help, we convinced the Oregon Parole Board to reverse its earlier decision. They declared the man a continuing danger to the community and decided to keep him in prison. I am deeply and forever grateful. Please join me in welcoming Ann Davison and Leesa Manion to Seattle Rotary and former President Mark Wright, who will lead today's conversation. Mark, go for it.
All right, Dorothy, thank you so much. It's an honor to be with all of you today, President Nancy, fellow Rotarians and guests, and of course, our distinguished panel. So after 35 years in television news, I escaped. I'm finally out. If you'll bear with me for about 30 seconds, I'll tell you what I'm up to right now. I've joined a non-traditional media agency called Work P2P. Our founder, Dan Rogers, is on a mission to redeem work. To that end, he's hired me to host a podcast called Beats Working. Like, hey, it beats working, winning the game of work. So if you're interested in making work better for everyone, check out the Beats Working podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And now back to our program, as they say. Thank you for indulging me. So even though I'm not a traditional journalist anymore, I'm still committed to fairness and truth. I've chosen not to take sides after my professional media career because I think it's way more fun not to take sides. So today's discussion with King County Prosecutor Leesa Manion and Seattle City Attorney Ann Davison really is just about discussing where we are when it comes to criminal justice and safety in the Seattle metro area. So Ann and Leesa, if I may call you by your first names for to be a little more expedient, thank you so much for joining us. It's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me here. I'm happy to have one syllable, right? And we can make it short and sweet.
Awesome.
Really glad.
And I want to just say
happy to be here.
Thank you both. And I just want to say that if you hear me say something that isn't factually correct, please jump in and correct me. I would love that. I think to start our discussion today, and we've got plenty of time, which is wonderful. I'd like to start by asking both of you to spell out your job description when it comes to actually what you do on a daily basis, and also the jurisdiction. So Leesa, if you would start, that would be great.
Sure. The King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office has felony jurisdiction and juvenile crime jurisdiction in all parts of King County. We have misdemeanor crime jurisdiction in the unincorporated areas of King County, the areas that aren't part of cities. I also have a civil division that serves as the private legal advisors for King County Executive, the King County Council, and all of our King County agencies. I have a family support division that establishes parentage in some cases and modifies child support, and also connects individuals with services to keep that parent-child relationship intact.
All right, thank you. Anne.
Similar to Lisa's office, I have two sides of the house, as I refer to them. One is with our civil side, which we provide legal advice to the mayor and city council and all the executive departments, and defend the city in litigation and represent it in any court hearing on those sides. And on the criminal side, I'm the misdemeanor prosecutor, for the city of Seattle, gross misdemeanors. And so those come to my office, and we have a criminal division to handle those.
Thank you. So a recent national survey found that 7.2%, or about 250,000 residents in the Seattle metro area, have considered leaving due to rising crime. That is the highest percentage of any large metro area in the country. According to the survey takers, by comparison, only 3.4% of New Yorkers considered moving away over similar concerns. We all know that when it comes to crime, there is public perception, and then there are actual crime statistics. I'd love for each of you to give a snapshot to all of us where we stand when it comes to crime and safety in Seattle. Anne, why don't you start?
I do appreciate your earlier comment, Mark, about not taking sides, and I really don't think that it should be a side, which I feel like has been where we've culminated here. And I really do. I appreciate Leesa so much, and I've heard her say similar. The work, the reason why we're here is so instrumental of our being here together, because to me, the only way we really can see improvement on public safety at any level of offense is by she and I working together and understanding our roles as prosecutors, and that crime does not stay in one isolated area. It doesn't also stay neat and tidy as a felony or a misdemeanor. It goes across borders and jurisdictions and enters neighborhoods and other governing authorities. But by starting the conversation between us, I think that's where we really can start to show the impactfulness that we can bring. And I think we had not had that prior to my arrival. I'm thankful to her predecessor as well for being open to starting that with me and my office through our High Equalizer initiative, and using data to inform my office about what we need to do and how we can be instrumental in changing that notion. The stats that we were seeing were such that there was a disconnect from what people were experiencing, and then the number of reported crimes, and then the number of referrals that we get. And so by making sure we are having the open dialogue with other public safety partners, I think we really can show that with the data, how we can be able to address that. It doesn't cost anything for Leesa and I to speak, but it costs all of us a great deal if we don't. And so we didn't need additional dollars or people, but we needed to just be able to put egos aside. For whatever reason people didn't speak or work together in the past, we have to move forward on improving public safety. And I think that disconnect and people wanting to stay hopefully then results from that.
Just a quick follow-up before Leesa hops in. Yeah. So, and give me an idea. I mean, it feels like crime is up in Seattle, but can you give us a better idea in terms of what the actual numbers say?
You know, I usually am a stat person, and I don't have them ready in my mind at the moment. So I know that we are seeing more referrals than we had been during the pandemic. But to me, that's a reflection of people calling and the police understanding that I'm here and we will be here to receive that as a prosecutor. I think there had been a downtrend of referrals coming over because the sense of why bother had really started to set in. People didn't call for officers. Why bother? They either can't show up because there's not enough, or if they do, they felt like they couldn't do very much. There wasn't a prosecutor backing them up from this office. And we've now started to build that back together. So to me, it's hard to give an answer on that. The number of referrals are increasing, but to me, it's showing back towards pre-pandemic time period of, and I hope that's the system being put back together where people feel like, I do need to call. I talk about it like a track team around relay team around a track. If people don't call, right, then the police can't start that as the first leg of that baton. And then we as prosecutors are that second leg where we can't do anything unless and until we get that referral from law enforcement. But that has to initiate with a call to say there's been a crime that has occurred and initiate that report and that investigation. And does it culminate in a referral to a prosecutor? That's only when our data starts to show up where we can then be instrumental in moving that baton forward.
Okay, thank you, Leesa.
I want to thank Ann Davison for her partnership, and I just want to reiterate that the partnership between our two offices has never been stronger. Our teams speak on the phone with one another every single day. We're keeping track of the individuals who are cycling in and out of our justice system, but also the individuals who are cycling in and out of our care systems. By working together, we are able to take some crimes like organized retail theft, most of which, when committed, as a single act, fall within the misdemeanor or gross misdemeanor range. When we trade notes and work together, we can aggregate the value of the loss and in many cases file those as felony charges. With our people working together, both on the high utilizers list and the King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office's high impact prolific offender list, we have together driven down crime in the downtown core. So I know last year, the Downtown Seattle Association reported from January of 2022 to the end of June of 2022, a decrease in violent crime of about 29% and property crime by 15%. And then most recently at the DSA's annual report party, they reported that crime was down an additional 15%. I think that's a direct indicator of the type of work that Ann and I do together. There's also some good news in terms of domestic violence. Homicides are down to below pre-pandemic levels. To date, we've had 37 domestic violence trials go to verdict just in this year. We've had 12 very serious rape trials go to resolution between January and the end of this month. So it's an indicator that not only are we seeing a decrease in crime, but we're also working really hard to decrease the court backlog of charged cases that developed during the pandemic when our prosecutors were in court every single day filing charges, but courtrooms were closed to keep folks safe. An area where I have seen an increase in crime, but I think it also serves to protect public safety, is the increase in the number of drug dealing charges my office has filed. So from now until the end of July, we filed 200 drug dealing cases. Those are felony charges, and it marks a 39% increase from 2022 January through the end of July. And that's really my lawyers working closely with police to take down fentanyl rings. That's where a lot of those charges are coming from. So
that's great. Thank you. So I do want to talk about the Blake decision and drug laws in just a sec, but I would first like to talk about the COVID pandemic, impact on criminal justice. I think at one point there were something like 4,500 felony cases in the backlog caused by COVID shutting down the courts. I'd love to know what the residual effect has been, Leesa, on that and where we stand right now in terms of how the backlog is being cleared.
Right. Well, again, just to be really clear, because I think it's important for people to understand how the backlog developed. I had prosecutors in the courthouse working every day of the pandemic, filing violent crime, repeat property crime, sexual assault cases. But the Supreme Court closed our courtrooms to keep folks safe. So what developed was a backlog in charged criminal cases. I am really happy to report that because we received an influx of COVID relief dollars, I was at one point able to increase my staffing by 99 FTEs. We are currently up by 27 over pre-pandemic levels, and we have been eradicating that backlog. So I'm below pre-pandemic levels in all areas of my domestic violence unit. There is no backlog of unfiled charges in general crimes or violent crimes. And violent crimes is very nearly back to pre-pandemic level in all areas, and that includes pending cases. So it's a combination of working really hard to take serious crimes to trial. We're focused on violent crimes and sexual assaults. It's also having the additional capacity to ensure that my prosecutors are able to resolve our cases by plea deals. Most prosecutors' offices across the country resolve cases through negotiations. We're no different, but being able to have additional capacity to get those offers out and to work with defense really makes a difference.
How many cases on a percentage basis are pled out as opposed to go to trial? I'd be curious to know.
We have a trial rate of about 6%. Most offices across the country hover between the 3 to 5 to 6 range in terms of trials.
All right, thank you. And what did the COVID pandemic do to your office and to cases and prosecutions?
Well, when I started in January of 2022, there was not a lot of data that was visible to the public. And the important part for me was to make sure we had that data and transparency for the public to understand what was happening here. So I built a first of its kind data and transparency team to do that. Sadly, we're still working with a very archaic criminal case management system. It's nearly 30 years old. And so that has been something under the works to update, but it is still not with us. And so we are trying to make do with what we have in understanding the data that is accessible. We have to work hard to cull that data. But when we provided that look back, it was to see not just what happened within the pandemic, but what was there before that we could control within our own four walls, so to speak. So we weren't reliant on others to improve that process. And we had seen that. Then we went back to the data to 2019, so we could see pre-pandemic there was a backlog that was growing. There was an attempt to dig out from underneath that, but there was no internal change in the process. And so then when it started to build back up and COVID hit, it was an exacerbated backlog by that. And so really what it showed me was it was not just isolated to COVID, it was also internal process management that could be done better, so that at least within our own control, we can make that improvement. And so we have now dealt with that backlog. It was a 5,000 criminal case backlog that I walked into, and that has now been handled. It was not the way I would prefer to do it, but it was the way to make sure we are putting back, as I say, real-time accountability into the public safety system as we can, which is making sure our charges are filed closely in time with when we get that referral from Seattle Police.
All right, thank you. Let's talk about drug laws, the Blake decision. And again, it took me a while to get my head around this because it's a little bit confusing. So either of you can correct me, but I just want to set the stage. 2 years ago, state Supreme Court ruled that Washington's criminal code for felony drug possession was unconstitutionally flawed because it didn't require proof that someone knowingly committed the offense. The state of Washington will end up spending about $100 million to vacate an estimated 350,000 prior drug convictions and reimburse legal fees to people prosecuted under that law. So the state legislature has passed a new law fixing the problem, but the Seattle City Council has yet to pass a law mirroring the state law. So Leesa, I know that you sent a letter to the council this summer urging action. Can you explain the action that you're urging and why it's needed?
Yes, the city of Seattle is unique in that it requires a city ordinance to mirror state law to pass conforming legislation. And the reason I sent a letter to city council was because I had heard whispers that there was a belief that those cases could simply flow to the King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office. The challenge, of course, is that cities, they have the responsibility to handle misdemeanors and gross misdemeanors within city limits. And it's backed by not just state law, but to Attorney General's office's opinions. And it would also take a number of resources for me to take on a body of work that was unplanned and not budgeted. And also, I mean, to give credit to Ann Davison, I mean, she has a really talented team of individuals. And, you know, Ann and I would have to come to an agreement for me to take jurisdiction over any of her cases. And if we ever came to that, like, I guess, place, we would have that conversation, but it wouldn't be had at the city council level. You know, I think that Anne can speak to this more eloquently because she's been involved in the conversations. But, you know, when this news broke, I was traveling with the Seattle Chamber of Commerce on one of their inner city missions in San Jose, and it was the only thing that people could talk about. And for me, the decision to reflect showed me two things. That one, we in the city of Seattle, we are hesitant to prosecute those who are suffering from substance use disorder. And I think that makes sense. And I think there is wisdom in that, not just in our values, but also in wanting to be effective in changing behavior. I think it also showed that there was some dissatisfaction with the status quo. So allowing the time and having the city council work so closely with Anne as a strong leader to figure out a better model made sense to me. Just by way of like reference for what's going on in my office, you know, we have gross misdemeanor jurisdiction and misdemeanor jurisdiction in unincorporated areas of King County. We have filing standards. So we know when we will file charges. We have pre-filing and post-filing diversion options that are geared toward getting individuals to treatment so that the behavior will stop.
Thank you. So Anne, give me your perspective on all this, and in the absence of a city ordinance reflecting this state law, what's happening to people using and you know, possessing drugs?
I do again want to say thank you to Leesa for her being outspoken on that and helping educate many involved about how the system is currently structured. It doesn't mean there shouldn't and can't be improvements and reform work done, but to make the system function, it just means we need to make sure that, again, there's the dialogue, who does what role, you know, in the capacity that we're in now, and that's really how we can deliver better for the community at large, is if we all occupy our role and we do what we are put here to do, and no more and no less. And so I really do appreciate her leadership on that and connecting with the public and making that letter available for people to be educated on the topic. And so sadly, the circumstances are as she described. We do not have that in our municipal code. So therefore, I am not authorized to be a prosecutor and receive those referrals from Seattle Police if there's someone who is publicly using illegal drugs or knowingly has possession of them in the city of Seattle. So to me, it's a tragedy because we really are missing opportunities to divert people into treatment and to say to them that even through our system, you matter. We see you, we see what you're doing, and we actually care that you're doing it. We're not going to just walk by as if you're not. And throughout my time in my journey here, I've become friends with Tom Hansen, who's the author of American Junkie. And when I talk of him, I say it's with his permission because he's become a dear friend of mine. But he does tell me point blank that he wished someone had cared enough to make him stop prior to his disabling himself through his drug use. And I take that seriously, that this really is the time to intervene. So we are waiting instead.
Yeah. This is a delicate matter. I mean, the city council is on break right now, and it looks like the soonest they could get anything on the books is October. And I think other people, as I've just been consuming some media from around the country, there was even a piece in the Wall Street Journal recently that it's people are just, they can't believe that there's no law on the books and that the city council hasn't seen fit to pass something that allows your office to actually prosecute people openly using and possessing drugs in the city of Seattle. I mean, this is public safety is the number one issue that everyone is talking about. Business owners, business organizations, tourists. I just can't even understand what is it going to take, and how soon do you think that the council is going to pass something, Anne?
I'll add a segment of population to your list that you said, and it's children. Because to me, what is also happening is the representation to young minds of what do we do collectively as a society, and what they are learning just by observation. I include my children in this because of the conversations we've had, which is we walk by and we ignore because you don't know what to do, so you don't engage because it's not your role and you're not trained to do it. And so to me, that's the important part, is that young minds are observing this and seeing that we leave people that are clearly in need and walk by. We don't do what we can, which in some ways prosecuting is the way to help, because we can divert to treatment. So I apologize. Now I lost your question because I get really passionate about this topic. So
yeah, just do you have any hope that the council is going to act, and when? I mean,
right, because again, I'll remind people, 86% of our state lawmakers voted for this compromise. So that's 86%. That leaves 14% voted against the compromise bill for the Blake fix. And so that's a staggering number of people, to me, showing that this is really a really well thought out approach. It took 2 years to come to this culmination from our state lawmakers. We really just need conforming legislation to happen so the city can also be a participant in helping get people into treatment. That's what we want to do here. Natalie Walton Anderson, my criminal chief, is very well experienced in alternatives to mainstream prosecution, particularly in therapeutic courts, at the King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office prior to and then she took a short stint at the U.S. Attorney's Office, but I'm very honored to have her here as my criminal chief. And I think it's important. We are here to be able to be of help in that role for society, and we're waiting to do so.
Leesa, anything to add before we move on to a new topic?
No.
Okay. Yeah, and I'll just throw out a few stats explaining why this is so important. Last year, there were 589 overdose deaths in Seattle. 589. 72% increase over 2021, most were fentanyl or meth. King County Emergency Medical Services responded to almost 5,000 opioid overdoses by August 13th of this year, compared to 3,700 in all of 2021. Downtown Seattle Association recently found that nearly 3/4 of locals they polled are visiting downtown Seattle less, and public disorder is the top reason. So,
Mark, can I add one thing?
Yeah.
Sorry, to add one thing, because I just noted something this morning that King County has done in regards with DSHS and the complicated topic that Leesa and I have worked on with the restoration. So I don't know if you're headed that way, but to me, also part of why this is so important is because the longer we leave people exposed to the toxic substances that are the predominant ones that are being used today, the less we are caring for their individual longevity, because many will become incompetent because of the exposure to those substances the longer they are exposed to them. And it's really a serious thing. I can see people hover along the competency line with the substance use that is going on. And then over that time period, they no longer can regain that. So we're really not helping them individually, and we're certainly not helping the system, as we have so many then we have to care for in that situation.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that issue up. Let's go there. When people come before the courts and they don't appear to be competent, the state has to figure out how to determine whether they are competent or not competent to stand trial. And I understand there's a pretty big wait list. And this apparently is under the purview of Department of Social and Human Services. Can you guys help us understand that backlog and what needs to be done to fix that?
Well, I think that what we need to do to fix it is we have to have resources and they have to be provided at the state level. This is a state function, and we really are calling upon the leaders of the state to dedicate resources, but also to implement some things that would, help with the backlog. My understanding is that there are 400 individuals who are waiting to be licensed to provide mental health services. I don't know the cause for the backlog or why folks are waiting, but is that something that our state leaders could put on the fast track to increase capacity? Or could they contract with community-based service providers? Could they help us prioritize the seriousness of the cases in order to fast track some individuals into treatment, into competency restoration? And these are just some things that could happen on the short term, but long term, it's really going to have to be resources and making this a priority.
And anything before we move on? I'm glad you raised the issue.
I just again appreciate Leesa's partnership on this serious topic. I know we've been instrumental. We've written an article together on this topic. It really is a serious one. It's a complicated one, but it is very important for people to understand as a whole, whether you are a person who are handling this with a loved one or anything. It's very significant to me, and to me it's a subset of our population that they will not be able to self-advocate and self-organize to talk about the help that they need. So it is very important that we educate the people who don't have impact on this on a daily basis, as I said, with their loved ones, to understand what's happening, because it really is that subset that is not getting what they need and falling through the gaps and then cycling through sometimes with criminal activity. They don't all commit crimes, but when they do, then this is where we're involved, and it's why it's important that we can do it as soon as we can.
And Mark, if I may add on to Anne's comments, because I think this is really important. In 2022, I shared broadly that I was very interested in convening a conversation about what it would look like to revamp our state's involuntary treatment at court system. And in that conversation, I'm not interested in creating a legislative packet that we all push through together in the 2024 session. I'm interested in having a deeper conversation that really looks at what is the type of system that we would like, rather than try to fix something that is broken in a piecemeal fashion. Now, that is a statewide conversation because it's our state laws that are being impacted, but it's also a regionalized conversation because King County is the largest county in the state, and the volume is here. And also we do things just a little bit differently in those cases because they are based in an adversarial nature, because commitment is at the core, human dignity, and also incapacitating individuals is at the core. We tend to fight over those cases more in King County, and we fight for someone's release to nothing, to the streets without treatment. I would love to see us build a more collaborative model where we have police and prosecutors and crisis responders and public defense working together to get someone help in the least restrictive means possible before they decompensate, before they commit crimes, before they harm themselves or others. We can't do that without revamping the system. I have been in conversation with the King County Police Chiefs and Sheriffs Association and the governor's office in hopes that they will co-convene that conversation with me. And what I have been doing in 2023 is circling back with state lawmakers and local policymakers to let them know that I am very committed to convening this conversation, and I don't want folks to be surprised by it. I'm not the subject matter expert as it relates to involuntary treatment at court, but I do have the power to convene. And I know that there are others who want to join that conversation. And I just want to be clear that it's a conversation to develop the blueprint of the system that we would like to see. So because I'm here in front of this influential audience, I just want to again state my intention. And it's my hope that we launch that conversation, if not by the end of the year, then at the early part of 2024.
Thanks for adding that. I want to take about the next 5 minutes to talk about gun violence, and then we'll have about 10 minutes of Q&A with our audience. I don't know what the numbers say, but it feels like shootings are on the rise in Seattle. Over the weekend, there was a shooting at a hookah lounge on Rainier Avenue. 3 people died. The mayor released a statement. In that statement, he alluded to illegal guns in the wrong hands. He also said he'll continue to work with state lawmakers on enhanced gun legislation to end state preemption over firearms so that cities like Seattle can set, quote, our own laws to keep residents safe. This is such a complicated topic, but if you can briefly talk about what does the legislature need to do so that Seattle can pass a law, and what would that law look like?
You know what? Well, when I think about gun violence, I mean, I think what automatically comes to mind, and I'm sharing this perspective as someone who serves on the C4 board of the Alliance for Gun Responsibility, we really have to talk about what responsible gun ownership looks like. And, you know, practicing safe storage is a cost-effective way of reducing gun violence. Locking up guns so that they cannot be stolen, so that they cannot be used by children or teenagers or others to create harm. It's really cost-effective, but we don't talk about it enough in terms of, you know, public policy. We don't have billboards that say, hey, you should lock up your firearm, it saves lives. And then also in terms of addressing the harm that is caused by gun violence, I am having conversations with our police leaders and with community and with the King County Executive's firearm safety branch to talk about what it looks like to address gun violence twofold. One, we have to prosecute the individuals that are creating harm in our community. I will not turn a blind eye to someone who has committed a homicide or a first-degree assault with a firearm. To those who are concerned about whether we in criminal justice would be too heavy-handed or reignite the consequences that we don't intend, we can hold people accountable. We can prosecute those felony crimes in a way that's not draconian. I don't have to file every single firearm enhancement, but I can file the underlying charge to interrupt the behavior. We also have a small pilot going on in King County where the King County Executive Branch has contracted with some community-based organizations and Harborview Medical Center to reach out to those individuals who are close to gun violence, but who have not yet committed a crime, who have not yet come to harm by gun violence. I think that type of outreach is really important. I think what's missing is the linkage between the prosecutor's office, the community, and the police, so that we know exactly what type of outreach is being offered and what the impact of the outreach is. I think we can do a better job communicating on that, and we would have the impact that we all want to see. I am encouraged that those conversations are underway. In January, I did announce the formation of a new gun violence prevention unit in my office. We are in the process of staffing that. We're getting ready to advertise for the deputy prosecuting attorney that will lead those efforts. But I am encouraged by the work that is ahead of us.
Thank you. Anne, anything to add?
Well, I agree that's the sense, and it is really sad to hear what happens in neighborhoods, and there are neighborhoods where people are living and working, and it is full of people who are able to take care of themselves and many who are not. And so it's, to me, just full of sadness. And we here don't see as much of those types of cases as Leesa does. We do have some, but again, what can we do, which is strengthen the communication between our offices, continue to make sure we have the data available. Again, I'm having to contend with a 30-year-old system. So we are starting to get that deep dive of, okay, now how can we pull that out so we understand what is our role within that system and how can we be instrumental in helping in that.
One more thing before we get to Q&A, and I would love for you to weigh in on an idea. So in criminal justice, I think all of us can agree that it's way less expensive to fix problems before they get to a serious crime, whether it's guns or drugs or domestic violence, as we've talked about. So my question is, how far can we go in terms of preventive thinking and policy? So when we, things like safe injection sites have been talked about in the past, and people get all up in arms about, well, you're just letting people do drugs. Well, do you want them living under a bridge and breaking into your car and stealing stuff so they can go buy drugs? Or do you want them with social workers in a safe environment? That idea, as practical as it sounds, has gotten pushback here. But I'd love to hear from each of you. How far can we go? I mean, there are some European models that some people say are way overboard, but if you look at the actual outcome, it doesn't look too bad. How far can we go in Seattle, and what's the low-hanging fruit when it comes to that type of thinking, that type of prevention?
And you go first, and then I'll jump in.
I know it's helpful, Mark, when you tell us which one you'd like to go first. We've done a radio interview where we had to try to figure out who's going to go, and both of us are wanting to offer to the other, and then we're trying to figure out, at least we can see each other.
Okay, my bad. Go ahead.
No, you're good. I just said for future ones when we're together or when you have two people, it's super. It makes it easy on us. I actually, I think if that model you're citing on that topic specifically, there was a recent article that talks about the amount of crime that is just skyrocketing, like in Portugal, and the amount of human tragedy that is going on because those who are then within that type of behavior are now just everyone else is like, we don't even want to know about it. We don't even want to know about it. And I think I get quite jaded when I think about that type of a scenario, because then what you're doing is you're actually emotionally disconnecting completely. And those who don't have to interact with that type of activity really won't want to start to become the funder of it. And the saving of people's lives and mental health is what I fear would happen if we were to do something like that, where you're asking people to pay for it and also contend with the consequences that are just going to go on. I do agree that we have a lot of opportunity to be instrumental at early stages, which is why I say misdemeanors are really significant. They are the place where we're most likely to understand what has caused someone to start to engage in criminal activity. And it should be at this level where we say, as a society, these are our laws that we've collectively decided upon. And these are the things that should not be tolerated that people do against other people. And hopefully with that being intact, we see less for Leesa's level to handle. That would be my ideal, is that things are connected really well at the misdemeanor level. And we understand why someone has started to engage in criminal activity. There's not a robust reentry plan at misdemeanor level. It's often laid out within the felony level, but I think this is the level that it should be at. Again, if you're not making those plans, the goal is not conviction only, or conviction even. The goal is intervention. What can we do? And we have to recenter victims in the conversation. No victim has to be a part of the criminal justice system either. So the reason we have that is to make sure we have balanced what happened to a victim. We don't have someone else that's been traumatized, who we all know the saying, hurt people hurt people. We don't want a victim out there thinking the message to them is what happened didn't matter. So we balance it at the misdemeanor system, and then we rebuild out that reentry plan, because all of us would go back to what we know if that opportunity to change the message wasn't captured. So to me, there's a lot of hope and opportunity, but I think it's a lot of overlooked as quote unquote low level and maybe not worth it, but I think it is really worth it.
Wow, that's interesting. Leesa, thank you.
I am a big fan of prevention. And Mark, you asked about low-hanging fruit, and I'm going to talk about two programs that are geared toward preventing domestic violence. They're proven, evidence-based, and cost-effective. So in our juvenile realm, we used to offer family services, but only after a conviction. We have mandatory arrest for domestic violence calls in our state. And law enforcement would go to a family who was having a crisis, and they would take the young person to juvenile detention. What would happen is that those cases would fall apart because parents really didn't have an interest in prosecuting their children or their loved ones. And they also didn't want to take off work to do it. And there's nothing magical about our criminal justice system that gives families new tools on how to effectively and safely resolve conflict. In King County, we had an award-winning program called Step Up. It's so effective at teaching families how to resolve conflict and to be stronger families. but we offered it at the tail end. What we did is, instead of trying to change police behavior, because we have 39 law enforcement agencies in King County, when police bring a young person to the juvenile court, juvenile detention facility, instead of going through the detention door, they go to a respite center where they are met with a social worker. The social worker within 24 hours brings the family together with services. When those families engage in services, we don't prosecute the case. It keeps 350 cases a year out of the juvenile justice system. It used to be our most disproportionate crime. We can build that in certain cases at the adult level, and we're having those conversations. We have a pilot project going on right now with the YWCA that's effective. But the other thing we can do is we can bring this message to young people. We have a program called Team Up Washington, and it addresses both male and female athletes at the high school level. Coaching boys into men is geared toward male athletes. Athletes as leaders is geared toward young women who are athletes. It's a train the trainer model. So coaches from all of our high schools can attend the training, and they deliver the curriculum during their normal coaching process while the sport is ongoing. It's evidence-based, it's highly effective. I have a desire to bring this to every single high school in King County. Last week, we met with the Seahawks. Earlier this week, I met with the general counsel for the Mariners. I've had initial conversations with Beth Knox, who I know is part of this organization. And there is great interest in partnering together and having our professional athletes amplify how effective this program is, but to partner with us. The things that the high schools are asking for, they're asking for recognition for their coaches. Could that be tickets to team sports? Could it be having a professional athlete come to talk to their cohorts or their teams? Could it be recognizing our coaches on the jumbo boards of every single sports event? Small ask. Now, what I'm asking my county council members for, could they give us some seed money so that we could have a full-time executive director? Not a lot of money, but the one person who really works at making all the important linkages to ensure that schools know how to plug in and that we can get all of our coaches coached up on this. I'm really encouraged by the conversations that we're having, but it's really effective. And it not only will reduce domestic violence and keep cases out of our system, it also helps young people build healthy relationships.
Boy, those are some exciting ideas. Thank you to both of you. I'll step aside and let Jen Gladish take as many questions as we can from our members. Jen, thanks.
Thank you. This has been really incredible. We have about no time left, but I will say we have one very simple question that I want to make sure that we end on, coming from Jevin Powell. He wants to know what delights you every day. What keeps you in this work? If you have a very short one sentence you can share with us. I think what's so important about understanding this from you is we want to know what keeps you here when you're doing this really heavy, very important work that I know we are all grateful for, because somebody has to do it. Anne, can you share, please?
Wow, what a question. Thank you for that opportunity to pause and think about that and to articulate it. It really is as simple as being a mother and having been a daughter. I made the choice to do this at the deathbed of my birth mother while my adopted mother was in ICU. So I lost both women as to why I'm here and why I have my skills at the beginning of this journey. And my mother passed a month in to my year one. So being a mother and a daughter is really the entire reason why I'm here. I have some skills, and I think that I need to show the example to my kids of you do what you can, and you see where you can help. And so really that is the real part, and showing that everyone has something to contribute. You just need to identify what it is and see where you can plug in and help. And this is what I always wake up thinking about. So it really was a natural thing to do. I just never tied it really together, but being a mom really brought that around.
That is incredible. Thank you so much. Speaking to a mother of 3 young daughters here, I feel like you're talking directly to me. But I know this whole group is so happy to hear that that's what inspires you every day. Leesa, can you share with us quickly what keeps you going back to work every day and what got you started?
Sure, there are two things that delight me. One, it's the ability to serve my community and to make meaningful change. I am excited by that every single day. And the second is just the amazing team of individuals I work with at the prosecuting attorney's office. I love our legal service professionals and our deputy prosecuting attorneys who come to work because they're committed to our mission and also committed to public safety and public service.
Thank you so much. That's incredible. Nancy, we will give it back to you.
Great. Thank you, Anne and Leesa, for this informative presentation, and Mark Wright for your effective facilitation of our discussion. In appreciation for your time today, we've made a donation in your honor to Harvest Against Hunger of 600 servings of nutrient-dense produce.
Wow.
As moms, I think you'll appreciate that. In addition, we will provide both of you with a gift certificate that entitles you to come to one of our Rotary meetings and to bring a guest. We look forward to seeing you when that time works well for you. We're very grateful also for our sponsors. We have Bloodworks Northwest and Joel Farrell as sponsors for our, thank you, Joel, right there is a good picture. As a reminder, Bloodworks Northwest always needs blood, and because of that, I'm giving them a pint of my O positive tomorrow, so I encourage you to do that yourself. Now we have a chance to hear from John Steckler, our VP of Programs, on some upcoming events. Take it from there, John.
Thanks, Nancy. Well, first of all, in regards to programs, next week is our 5th Wednesday of the month, so there will be no program, which means it's a great opportunity for us to go out and do some service in the community. I have some other opportunities for you. First of all, next Friday, it says here August 23rd, but today is the 23rd, so obviously it's a typo. It's actually Friday, August 25th, I believe. Rotary District 5030 is going to have a night out with the Seattle Mariners. So everyone, here's a great opportunity to go out and see the M's. You can go to the website to get more information. On Saturday, the 26th, we have some volunteer days. First of all, Wellspring Family Services. This is always one of our favorite events to do, is having a volunteer day where we can go out and help Wellspring Family Services. Again, go to the website. You can go to the QR code to get more information. Also on Saturday, the 26th, we are having a tiny homes building day. Some of you have done this before. It's a really engaging, hands-on, fun activity to actually build some tiny homes. This will be at 5 South Nevada Street, the Hope Factory. Again, go to the website, put your camera on the QR code. You'll get more information on that as well. Now, let's go talk about some programs. We're back into it on September 6th, back here at the Westin. Back here at the Westin. We're actually at our homes. Lieutenant General Xavier Brunson, who's the commanding general of Joint Base Lewis McChord, will be with us. He'll talk about what it's like managing what is basically a large city like Joint Base Lewis McChord, and also what it's like running the Army today. There are some challenges and opportunities. On September 13th, Mayor Bruce Harrell will be back meeting with us again. He's going to talk about how they're doing, a little report card on their successes and some of the challenges that they're up to. And also we'll be getting an update from our sponsor and partner, Bloodworks Northwest. Also next up, September 20th. This is an interesting one. Judge Mike Heavey will be, who's a great speaker, very dynamic speaker. He'll be talking about a program called Judges for Justice. This is a group of judges that have come back out and re-examined a number of cases, criminal, what do we call these, capital crime offenders, where they have added DNA to the cases and found out that a number of these convicted felons were innocent, and they've released a number of these felons. These are very heartfelt cases. It's an extremely exciting program. I encourage you all to make it and engage in that. You're going to enjoy it, I promise you. On September 27th, this will be a Zoom only, Doris Macharia, I believe I said that correctly, who is with an organization called Orbis International. This is an inspirational service organization. They are dedicated to improving eye care and reducing blindness in third world and developing countries. A very inspirational program brought to us from Dorothy Bullitt. You're going to enjoy this one as well. That's on September 27th. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to you, President Nancy.
Great. Thank you, John. And thanks to your program committee for bringing us such great content. We have a little incentive for those of you that might be able to attend the Rotary Conference in October 13th to 15th in Victoria. Here is the incentive. If this will be your first district conference you've ever attended, our club will reimburse your $425 conference registration fee if you are one of the first 10 first-timers that register for the conference. So to be eligible, this must be your first conference, and you need to be one of the first 10 to send an email to mary@seattlerotary.org, and that way you send her a copy of your registration. And so we have proof of who's first in time. So we're excited to have you attend. I will be there, and a lot of our members have already signed up. So we look forward to that. I want to close with a thought on justice written by Haile Selassie, who served as the Emperor of Ethiopia from 1930 to 1974. He is credited with getting Ethiopia to join the United Nations. He said, "Throughout history, it's been the inaction of those who could have acted, the indifference of those who should have known better, the silence of the voice of justice when it mattered most, that has made it possible for evil to triumph." Anne and Leesa, it's obvious that you understand the essence of justice, and we're grateful to have you both serving. And it was just a wonderful chance for us to focus on this important topic today. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.